So Simon Finch has come along, and he's bought three slaves. This is so obviously we're going back to the era of slavery, and established a homestead on the banks of the Alabama River. And he's done well for himself. He got a wife. He became rich through cotton, and he and the all the men remain on Finch's Landing, and they make their money from cotton. These are the ancestors of the narrator. Okay, no, but after the war between the North and the South, um, the um, the narrator's family are not as well off as they were, and in fact, the narrator's father has broken the mold completely, and he's gone to read law, as they say, to study law. And his younger brother goes to Boston to study medicine because of the end of the slave trade. The cotton industry is not what it once was. And the sister Alexandra remains at the landing. And when her father Atticus finishes studying law, he comes back to the town Macomb. Macomb is the setting of our story, and he sets up a practice. Macomb is 20 miles east of Finch's Landing. Finch's Landing is where the ancestor of the narrator arrived many, many years back. The description of Atticus's law practice is not a glamorous one. It's just a little office in the courthouse. And there's a description of a hat rack, a spittoon, which is a place that people would spit their nicotine when they chewed tobacco. They would spit their tobacco into a checkerboard, and some books about the laws in Alabama. And even the story of his first two clients is not a glamorous story, because they happen to be the first two people who were hung in the Macomb County Jail. And even though Atticus had tried to urge them to plead guilty, they insisted on not pleading guilty. And because of the name of these two people, the Haverfords, who everybody knew were, well, it said a name synonymous with jackass, means, a good for nothing. This family were known as people that nobody liked or trusted. They'd got themselves into a argument about a horse, and they became violent, and they did not meet a good end. They ended up being hung. Nobody was interested in them not being guilty of what they did. And this meant that the father, after this, was not very interested in practicing criminal law, thought it was an awful thing. So he actually, Atticus has taken the money that he earns from his law practice, and he invests it in his brother's education. He helps his brother out, who is 10 years younger than him, and he pays for him to study medicine, because now cotton is not worth growing. The time when people got rich from growing cotton is over. We are in a much poorer era in the South. And Atticus stays in Macomb, and he's basically related either by blood or marriage to nearly every family in the town, which is very, very connected to all the themes we'll be hearing in the story. We're talking about a town where everybody knows each other, where the name, your family name, is the reputation that you have. So now we move on to a description of Macomb itself. Macomb is not a pleasant place to live. It is super hot in the summer, and in the winter it's just muddy and disgusting. There is nothing going on in this town. As it says, there is no hurry, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to buy, and no money to buy it with, and nothing to see outside of the boundaries of Macomb County. But it was a time of vague optimism. Now we're referring to nothing to fear except fear itself. We're talking about the famous inaugural speech by Franklin D. Roosevelt, who promised the American people that things were going to be better after the Great Depression. Okay, and we now are moving into the home of the narrator. She lives with Atticus, her father. He's not referred to her as dad. He's referred to in respect as Atticus, Jem and herself. And they have a cook called Calpurnia. Calpurnia is black. She has basically been there for a very long time. And she is a type of motherly figure, although she's not really their mother. And Calpurnia is somebody who they might respect, but they're not very keen on her. She's unhappy because every time she has a fight with Calpurnia, Atticus always takes Calpurnia's side. And she'd been with them since Jem was born. And it says, and I had felt her tyrannical presence as long as I could remember. So she rules them in a very, very strict and tough way. Now we understand that the narrator is an orphan. Her mother died when she was 2. She doesn't remember her mother at all, but her brother does. And the mother died very young. Atticus is 15 years older than her, and she dies from a heart attack which runs in the family. Again, we have the theme of things running in families, which we will see repeating itself again and again. Now we have the memory. We really keep zigzagging on the timeline, but we're going back to this summer when the narrator is almost 6 and Jem is the narrator is almost 6 and Jen is almost 10. The narrator has not gone to school yet. She's about to start. And they have this long summer ahead of them. And they have Radley's house, which is 3 doors to the south of them. And they have to stay within yelling distance of Calpurnia. Calpurnia, they have to be able to hear her when she yells at them to come in to eat or to come home to go to bed. Then we have... So we have on the one side the Radley place, and then on the other side, Mrs. Dubos's place. Neither of them are great places to be. Radley place was a mysterious place, and even the sound of the name scared them like crazy. And Mrs. Dubose was plain hell. That's all we hear. And then we're going to go back to Dill. Dill comes to them in the summer, and we have a memory of the first time they meet this Dill character, who's very small, very self-confident. He immediately tells them that he can read. And the irony is that the narrator has known how to read since she was very, very small. So it's not really anything for them to say wow to. And then Dill is trying to find other things to show off about. That he had won a beautiful child contest and he'd won $5, and with that money he'd gone to the picture show, which is something that will sort of make the others admire him a little bit, because there are no picture shows in Macomb County except something religious that they play in the courthouse every now and then. And Dill had gone to see Dracula, so they have this fascination with things that are the supernatural and horror. And then we have another description of Dill with his white hair that sticks up, and he's buttoned up from his shorts to his shirt, and he's very tiny, and he talks on and on about Dracula. And then they ask him about his father. Right? He says, I haven't got one. But his father is not dead, but he doesn't seem to be in the picture at all. Okay, so then we are going to have a description of how these kids keep themselves busy over the summer in a place where there is nothing to do. They make a tree house, and then they act out parts in plays. They're very happy to have this Dill because he can play all the parts that they had to play unwillingly at the beginning, like playing an ape or playing Mr. Damon in Tom Swift, so he gets to play the roles. But by the end of August, they're kind of fed up. They've done the Treehouse and they've acted in the plays, and then Dill has the idea of making Boo Radley come out. Who Boo Radley is and how they're going to do that, we're going to find out soon.